what do you call yourself, Mel? Do you call yourself an entrepreneur, a business owner, what is the heading?
Straight into it. Well, honestly, like, I feel like I'm just Mel. And when someone tries to explain what it is that I do, everyone else comes up with a title or a bio or a description rather than something that I've probably come up with. If I had to summarize, yeah, I guess so. I would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. If we talk about what an entrepreneur is, I think an entrepreneur is someone that takes risks and solves problems. And so I do put myself in that category. And would it be just one business? Would it be just one thing? Probably much like yourself. You can't really just say that it's one business. So it would be a serial entrepreneur that I am.
Yeah, because you've got obviously the events company, MCO Events. You've got Ego Expo. I see in here you've got Inked Expo, which I haven't heard much about. You've got Order Buddy. You've got the Throwback Lounge, the District, which I think is a new venture. Mental health speaker. I've heard you speak before. An incredible, I guess, speaker in regards to all things mental health. Podcaster, coaching. So you've definitely got a broad group of things that you're working on. But more importantly, I think they're all successful, which is the important part. And I know there's probably a lot you still need to achieve and want to achieve within all of these. But when I look at MCO Events, we were just discussing off screen about the uptake in bookings for that Ego Expo, something that I've been to personally. It's a great and really empowering movement that you've been a part of. And we'll discuss all of that today. But these things are not just, I guess, names in bios. They're running businesses, operating businesses. So I guess let's start with that. Talk to us a little bit how you, I guess, transitioned into business and where it all started for you.
Yeah. So I've never thought of myself as a business owner. I never, as a kid growing up, wasn't one that was in the world of entrepreneurship. My dad had a Chinese restaurant. So in terms of working for yourself, I definitely grew up amongst being able to make a living with your own two hands and providing for the family. However, would I even say my dad was an entrepreneur? Absolutely not. I'd say he was a business owner and owner-operator, and then he never really got to scale or grow outside of that. Growing up in school, and with most of us, I think we get taught in the education system to be a really good employee. We learn to sort of climb the ladder or figure out the social structure and build a career per se. So I went into psychology with just family upbringing and stuff, fell in love with relationships, the human brain, and all of that. So I grew up studying psychology. And then I have to take you way back because that's how it gives you context. But basically,
no, that's okay, please.
Yeah, basically, at 18, I fell in love, and me and my partner of that time was together for 6 years, and he died by suicide in 2014. I'm skimming the story very quickly, but I think with my journey, I had to go through a massive fork in the road, and I understand that that's not everyone's journey, having something so significant as losing a partner to suicide. But for that, it actually prompted me at 23 years old to ask some very deep personal development questions that most people might not have until they get triggered or faced with trauma, which was, who am I? What am I here? Why am I here? And how can I serve my community better, or how can I live this life to the fullest? Because I had seen death at such an early age, at such a triggering way, that my life then veered another path. And what that looked like for me was I took a back seat on being a psychologist. I was working my way up in the field, and I got suspended for 6 months. And I got suspended, rightly so, by my supervisors, because I was someone that was like, let's just get back in there. And they were like, pump the brakes. Like, you need to grieve and you need to heal.
Yeah, of course.
And then during that time at 24 at grieving and healing, I used work as a distraction. I really did use building a business as a distraction. So it didn't turn out straight like that. So I ended up being in the Tattoo Expo. So I veered a completely other way in life, and I just went all creative. So I was quite academic. Like I said, studying psychology, it was quite a clinical process, counseling. And then I just went the complete other way and went complete right brain and into this creative world of tattoo arts and culture. And I fell in love with that space. I fell in love with project management in events, and I quickly grew and scaled that business. It wasn't mine, but scaled it within a company, within a culture, within a team quite rapidly. And then after 4 years of doing that, running these successful tattoo expos across Australia, I was 27 and I was like, I can do this on my own. I'm going to, the next step is I'm going to build my own events company and build my own expo and essentially like just make a name for myself. That sounds really great. And in hindsight, that was the stupidest thing I could have ever done. And I was incredibly naive. Like it's one thing to build a really successful multi-million dollar business for someone else. It's not that easy to then just literally get off my cushion, like comfy,
start it.
Comfy salary and go and start my own thing. But I think in the business world, and I don't know if Sam, if you can agree, but to start your own business, I think there needs to be some level of optimism and naivety. And you kind of don't know how hard it is until you're actually out there doing it. Because if everyone told you kind of exactly the challenges and the struggles you would face, you probably wouldn't have started in the first place. So the naivety in me, that younger, passionate Mel, that was full of optimism, I think is how I led to starting my own events company. And then through a lot of failures, a lot of expensive failures, did I sort of now come out and, like you said, Sam, on the outside, it might be like I've reached some level of success, and I don't want to shy away from owning and stepping into that power that I have reached a sustainable operating business for more than 5 years. But it isn't without incredible hard work, struggles, and a lot of late nights.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. I think there's a few things there that are really important. Initially, I think trauma itself is such an interesting topic. Like, I've definitely dealt with a little bit of it myself with my past careers, and it's really interesting to watch certain individuals, especially now looking at how they're able to react as well, be resilient, and all these things, which I think make a really strong business owner or leader. Leader is probably the word I'm looking for. And I guess with your point towards optimism, I think even today I lead and create with such optimism. I think without it, you're quite stagnant. And I think these are two really strong traits of business owners and leaders, especially today, is resilience and optimism and forward thinking. But the events business, you mentioned a lot of lessons, and you mentioned a lot of failures and things like that. Talk to me a little bit about those early on ones that I guess may have put you back, may have made you think this isn't as easy as you think. And then on top of that, like, I guess what were the major things that you learned early on? I know for me, I thought that at 20, I think I was 21 at the time, would be able to walk into businesses where owners are 40, 35, 60 years old and tell them what to do. I quickly learned that wasn't the case, and that was one of the biggest challenges that I had to come over, is that the respect a 21-year-old would gain when going into business, when running a business's marketing and helping with their internal strategies. There wasn't a whole lot of respect for a person my age. So I really had to overcome that and think of a way to become more innovative in our approach. And I guess I'm really interested in understanding those challenges that you had, and more importantly, how you overcome them.
Again, a lot of lessons in that. And I think one of my biggest ones for entrepreneurs that are starting out now is dream big, but start small. And I say that because I think you need the big dream, you need the visionary, you need the stuff that like is you feel like you're going to change lives and move mountains, but start small. And my biggest lesson was that I didn't do that. I went go big or go home. And that really affected my cash flow, trying to be the biggest, Australia's largest streetwear expo. We wanted to be big. I wanted to do all of it right in that, but I didn't have the resources, but I didn't have, probably similar to you, I didn't have the network at the time as well to then have everyone do all these things for me, because it was like stepping into a brand new industry with an ABN and an ACN that's been registered for 3 months, it doesn't really give you any credibility or reputation, especially exactly like that. When I was walking in to these businesses and these event spaces, Melbourne Exhibition Centre, working with Atlantic Group, there were really big companies where I was knocking on their door with very little experience behind my belt. So I think that was a huge one. Cash flow. Really knowing your numbers as an entrepreneur as well, starting out. I think we get so obsessed with the idea and the passion and the creativity that we can run with that. And we don't actually understand the business needs to be profitable and sustainable for it to actually be a successful business. At the end of the day, a business is about numbers. And if you don't make money, it's a hobby. Or it's a not-for-profit. And even the not-for-profit has to have a sustainable business model, you know what I mean? So I think having someone or understanding your own numbers, understanding what your return on investments are, understanding what your profit margins are, things like that, instead of just going out and winging it essentially, because you're gonna lose a lot of money along the way. And I think now as a business coach, I guide people they can make mistakes, you'll learn from your failures, but there's ways that you can make not as expensive mistakes, and you do not need to lose everything for you to learn some incredible lessons in that. So I think cash flow and starting small, really planting the seed and starting small.
Yeah, I think that's like, there's business ethics that always get forgotten when businesses are started. And that's one thing I learned really quickly is like, you go from living in some regards, studying, whatever that may be, and you roll into business, and you don't actually make a transition to running a business and understanding that there's certain ways to and to not run a business. And at the end of the day, you cannot just walk into it like you've mentioned and just expect it to grow. I think I learned that really quickly, and I'm very lucky to have some really strong advisors, really strong support around me now, who have been able to really walk me through that, I guess, healthy business model. What is a profitable company? What do we look for in good businesses? Yeah. What are the real key indicators for us? And it's sound advice. I think you can get really lost in the future, but at the end of the day, we deal with it a lot. Like we work with, in the Your Social division of our business, we only work with small business. But 3 out of 4 small businesses turn over after 4 years. So we see it every single day, businesses who come in and we're sometimes their last hurrah. Like they try to do their internal marketing themselves, seems to not be working because there's so much to it. And then they may have 3 to 6 months left in this business lifeline of theirs, and they come to us and they're like, hey, you need to make this work because we're bleeding and we're going to fall over if we don't get something to happen. And then we are the lifeline. And we have that happen a little bit. And look, it's a great challenge. It's also, we don't know because we don't understand the internal numbers when they come and join us, but you can start to feel it after about 2 to 3 months. Someone's like, hey, I need this to really start working tomorrow because on the other end of this, I got people needing things. So yeah, I think the cash flow is such a big one, especially now with everything that's going on. And getting the right advice, like you mentioned, you do business coaching, which is great. I personally now have 2 very senior advisors, one who spent around 30 to 40 years, I guess, in some of Australia's biggest companies, and one who runs a very large and a really important business within a telecom. So that was my advice to anyone, was go out and seek someone like you and spend time with someone like you who is spending time coaching people, because there's so many mistakes out there to make. I guess Ego Expo is something I want to move this conversation to, because I did come to the launch party this year. It was you had some both local, global brands there as well. Talk to us a little bit about that, and I guess how you found 2 years off, I think it was, coming back to the event space. There was obviously some considerations around crowds and all of this, but you had a really successful weekend there. Talk to us a little bit about how that went, and even so much where that started, the whole motivation for that, because I think it's a great initiative, especially within the Australian streetwear space, and more so than the streetwear space, the whole community and culture side of things that you're really tapping into.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, and thanks so much for supporting and showing love and coming to a launch event that provides this platform for these brands and businesses. But basically, for those that are listening and who don't know, to put it really simply, Ego Expo is Australia's streetwear expo. We provide a community platform where brands, online emerging independent brands, can meet their consumers face to face. It's as simple as that. We're just that platform that unites that together. We have about 60 to 70 Australian brands that come through, and they get to meet their customers. They get to look, touch and feel the product, and also then connect with buyers and stockists to then potentially take their business to a scalable level. And the whole platform started because ironically because of my own ego, but I wanted to be the platform where brands came to, but it was much deeper than that. So the very word ego, it's about self-identity, and fashion feeds our identity, and we either dress it up or we play it down. And so streetwear was something that I was really fascinated with. I still wear streetwear. I believe in comfort. I think the movement has changed. Even in the world of business, you've got your Gary V's, you've got your Steve Jobs that are no longer wearing suits. They wore, sneakers and a crew neck, or it was very basic fashion. And it stood away from that corporate side. And I really aligned with that. And I'm sure you do too, Sam, where you can wear chinos and sneakers and shake a hand and still do a business deal respectfully. And so I really fell in love with that space. But what I fell in love with more, and it's probably from my psychology background as well, is I'm obsessed with stories. Even with a marketing background, I believe that it's not the product that sells, it's the story that sells. And so it's our mission to, be really good storytellers. And in streetwear, it's more than a logo, right? And I keep pointing at this because I'm wearing one of Australia's, the world's most iconic labels, right? Nike. And it's not so much the logo, it's not so much the swoosh, the tick, it's the meaning behind it. It's the just do it message behind a streetwear brand that cultivates such a big movement. So Ego provides that platform for storytelling. We believe in not the logo, we believe in the story behind the logo, because essentially at the end of the day, it's just another t-shirt with a logo, but it's so much more than that, right? When you strip away the ego, you've got a lot underneath that. You've got the spirit, you've got the soul, you've got the story. And so, put simply, that's what we do. We're really good storytellers, and we provide that platform, and we teach our small businesses and independent businesses how to grow and scale into the likes of your Culture Kings, your General Pants, your Myers. And yeah, that's kind of like the event. It started in 2017, like I said, very naive, and I just went and knocked on doors. I had no data, I had no stats, I had no numbers, but people really believed in the movement, and they believed in me. They believed in the person that was telling that story, and they banked and they backed me as the entrepreneur at the time. Now Ego's got its own identity. It doesn't have to be driven by the founder. And to be honest, people are quite dissociated from the Mel U brand, which I have with coaching, speaking, all of that, and the Ego brand. The Ego stands alone on itself, which is very, for me, a positive, because before I was the one that was hounding it, driving it, and people were only buying into the business if I sold. There's a danger in that because it's not scalable. If Mel has to do everything, the business can't grow. Now we have sales managers, we have event managers, and all of that. The excitement was coming back out of 2 years of not having a face-to-face event. It showed in our numbers, and it showed in the community spirit. So yeah, we talk about streetwear, but if we look at the culture as a whole, streetwear is so much more than that. Streetwear, people identify with it as the underdog. People come from literally nothing to something, and they make something of themselves. And that's the community and the culture and the values that we bring from our brands to our community, to our audience, to people like yourself. You really resonate with it because at some point in our lives, I think we can all root for the underdog. We can all go and take a swing and have a bat and come out on the other side and potentially be successful. And so that's kind of where our culture has expanded. It's much more than a fashion community. We incorporate sport. We have basketball. We incorporate tattoo art. We incorporate barbers. We incorporate street food, food trucks, dance battles, you name it. In terms of the demographic, I think it's much more than fashion. It extends to music. It extends to so many other areas of our lives. And that's how we build a pretty strong community, a community that we're very proud of. And our community and our following is very loyal.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. It's really interesting to see, I guess, when I was there, it was really diverse. Like the diversity was extremely noticeable in regards to, I guess, everything. And bringing that together is it's not something you see a lot. And I think especially here in Australia, you definitely don't see the community that you had there. You've got, I could notice a lot of, I guess, the fashion pushers from the West Side who were doing their things. We both know Omar, who's doing great things out there. But you also had, I guess, people like yourself who were business owners, and there was a really, I guess, interesting dynamic, and it was a powerful dynamic, because for the first time in a long time, I was at something where there was no ego, which it's interesting to say, but the way in which you had people of I guess, not a massive amount of experience modeling, doing their thing, really buying into that. But I want to touch on like how did that start? Because we look at businesses all day, we work with businesses all day who dream to create that sort of community. I mentioned in the last video I had similar to this that you only need 1,000 loyal customers to make a brand successful, or to get some sort of level of success. And what we told them on is to find your niche, find your market, and really focus on driving into that. And we then categorize that based on a number of demographics, behaviors, interests, et cetera, et cetera. But you've taken what I would say is something really hard to create in a marketing sense, and it's, I guess, a state of mind. And you've really tapped into a state of mind of a community, which is they want to connect, they want to be involved, they want to remove the ego, and they have similar interests to some degree. So I've went from what is a very technical sense, which is basing people on their location, age, gender, interest, behaviors. And then I look at the community that you had, which is all of them. Like, you had people from everywhere, right? So, but what I'm interested in knowing is how you necessarily built that. Did you start on social media? Did you go to, I guess, groups that you currently knew existed? What was the ideation behind that, and how did you execute it?
Yeah. And a great point, I think we do when we try and find our niche and we try and build your avatar, who's your dream customer, all of that. How I coach people now, and this is, I think, the most valuable thing that I got taught from my business mentors and coaches, was rather than looking at the demographics, look at the psychographics. And so what that means is moving the actual demographic of age, physicality. Because if you're a coach, or if you do business and you go, my ideal customer is a female, she's shopping, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, if a guy came up and was like, hey, I want your services, I want to buy your stuff, you're not going to go, sorry, don't fit my mold, I'm not going to serve you. It's not really like that. But if we turn into the psychographics of someone, so the mindset of someone, the attitude of someone, the values that you're aligned with of someone, now it opens up a whole nother kettle of fish. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, now we open up and now we really start talking about what that mindset is. And like what you said, it's very noticeable that at Ego Expo, even if you look at all our marketing assets, we're so diverse, people of color, disabilities, age, it has no limits. But the psychographic is how we get the attention of people, because when you go into that room, everyone's being almost preconditioned due to our marketing and our storytelling to come in and leave your ego at the door. So at every one of our events, we literally say, leave your ego at the door, ego at the door. And just that little tiny moment, it just kind of puts you back in line and go, okay, cool. Like, what am I actually in for? And I like to see people's similarities rather than differences. We celebrate our differences, but I think that there's more things that make us human than the differences that set us apart. And with that attitude, I've lived by that. I live and breathe it. It's not just on my social media platform. It's actually an attitude that I have towards life, because I've had to. Being Chinese, growing up in a western suburb called Patterson Lakes, it's palm trees, boats, and a lot of Western people. So for me, I've always had to assimilate into different cultures, right? Like, I've always had to kind of be a chameleon. And so that trait of mine, the ability to look for similarities rather than differences, what's the sameness in you and me? When I travel, I look at what makes me and you the same. And so it might just be something that I was born with, or an attitude, but once I adopted that, that's helped me just break through so many barriers, open so many doors, because I don't see people as challenges. I don't see people as competition. I'm very big on collaboration. So I think the attitude was how it actually started. And as the founder, the founding values were really important. Who I brought onto my team immediately as a small startup was attitude. Did these people believe what I believed? It didn't even necessarily have to be money, because I didn't have any then, and no one wanted me other than, they believed in the vision though, and they believed on the world that I was trying to create. And it's a world where we could, for a moment in time, even if it's just a weekend, we could just leave our egos at the door and come in and just like celebrate everyone for who they were. So how did it start? The business still to date, after 5 years, is built on social media. The power of social media and the power of influence on socials, you need a platform. If you don't know socials, you don't know how to play in the game, get a digital marketing agency, get a social agency, because it is how we communicate right now. Your consumer is on there. Anyone that is a big corporate that's like, our customer's not on there. Our customer's not on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube. You are kidding yourself, because behind every customer is a social human being that is using these platforms to connect with family and friends. So we built it like that. We didn't have any money for major influencers, so we hit micro influencers that were very, again, very aligned with what we did. Javed J, for example, is one that he's the store manager at Culture Kings, but he's a Melbourne influencer, model, creative. We tapped into influencers like that, like Kwabi, people that were popping in the space but underground and emerging, and we went on that ride with them. They went on that ride with us. And as the business grows, when I talk about loyalness, these guys are, whenever I make a phone call, I'm like, hey guys, like, we've got this event coming on, can you do this? It's a yes. We build those relationships, and our relationships are so strong that the reputation speaks for itself, and it's almost like a ripple effect. So, that's kind of how we started. Social media, micro influencers. Still to date, we hit micro influencers with small communities. Kind of like what you've just said. Don't underestimate the person that has 1,000 followers, because if that person has 1,000 followers that are just diehard loyal fans that believe in everything that they do, means a lot more than someone with 1.5 million followers that are potentially not even in your target market, or they're overseas and it's not applicable to your business.
Yeah, it's so true. The local markets and the localized, I guess, micro influencer markets at the moment are really where we're seeing a lot of direction go. And you make really good points around the social media side of things. Like, the numbers behind it are really interesting. You're looking at, I think it's around 92%, 84% of people are now on social media. I think like the fastest growing age group on TikTok is 35 and above. So you're seeing like a real shift across the board. And it's only going to continue growing. As you said, we internally are really interested in, like, I guess, being able to not only create that community at the Expo, but be able to showcase that community online. And you mentioned you've been able to build your business off the back of that. I guess when you look at content from your perspective, because we've tapped through a few things here, and you're talking about the psychology of the consumer, did you early on have a lot of success by posting, I guess, content that you thought really resonated with them, or did that take a bit of time to work out? Because, as you said, you started this concept based off a motivation internally, and you've now been able to grow that to a substantial event. But early on, you would have had some challenges in working out, what do these people want to see? What do they want to hear? How do we tap into that psychology you're talking about? And you're talking more so about leaving an ego at the door. So these things aren't easy to create in some regards. You can't, like an e-commerce product or a hospitality business, you can't take a photo and showcase what you got. You've more so got a mission. And I'm really interested in understanding how you were able to, I guess, publicize that and bring that to life through your social media channels, because it's, it needs to be impactful. It needs to have meaning. But when you do get that right, it can be extremely beneficial, as you mentioned. So I guess for anyone listening, I think it's really important that they find out how you were able to take, I guess, that motivation, that attitude towards leaving the ego at the door, and resonate that on social media where people could actually see that, feel that, and buy into that. How were you able to do that?
Authenticity is the one thing that comes to mind straight off the bat. I've always stayed true authentically to my mission, my internal motivation, and how I do things. Do I always get it right? Absolutely not. That's why I've smiled. Does the marketing message always hit home? Absolutely not. But what I do know to be true is that my intention has always remained authentic to who I am. And if that's all that I've got, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with stuffing up. I'm okay with making mistakes, because if you're a true entrepreneur with a true message, then it's actually easy to craft your message because it's authentic. You don't actually have to act or be or do anything else other than be yourself. And that's all I've really advocated for. And I do that in my own personal brand. It's why people resonate with that energy, because real recognizes real. When you're trying to be someone else, eventually it's just not sustainable. Or you could have an insane amount of growth and then, you know what, you're not even passionate about it. Or you could reach a certain level of success in the eye of someone else and then you're depressed. And trust me, I know if you're standing from a place of broke or like you're not there yet, you might think if I had that 1 million or whatever number it is, you'd feel happy. I promise you, I've met a lot more millionaires that are sad and depressed about their life and having relationship problems than not. So it isn't an equation of that. But if you can live in your true authentic self, your message will actually come across on socials. But there's still a skill to that. So you can be authentic, but you know what? Authenticity comes with self-awareness. So if you don't write good copy, if you don't know how to take good photos, if you don't know how to create engaging video content, that can also not get your authentic message across. So that's where social media agencies and businesses like yourselves can really help tap into that, because it's a skill set to be able to write engaging copywriting and use language as an art, or use, my voice right now as an art, use music, whatever it may be, to get your message across. Get that team, get that people to, really understand that. But again, it comes to authenticity. You have to be able to nail the branding story before you can actually do sales and marketing. So build the brand, be authentic in it, talk to the people, find people that just, when you walk away, you're empowered and you feel great. Like if you walk away and your tummy ties a knot, you've got self-doubt, they might not be your people and they might not be your agency. There's so many agencies around. Don't just stop at one, because we did the same. Marketing, such a, especially digital marketing, and there's so many agencies, with all due respect, that can promise the world and they never deliver.
Yes.
And I'm sure you hear it. Spending money to make money is not a thing for me. I'm more than willing to spend, but 100%, if people don't have integrity and back their word, that's where it goes wrong, right? Like everyone can dump money behind a Facebook ad and then go look at all the impressions, but it's like, is that what we're actually looking for? Let's go out there and find our customers. So trial and error, go out there, try, make mistakes. And also how we ended up getting our marketing messaging right is we directly asked our customers. Customer survey feedback, swallowing my ego, calling every single brand after every single expo, despite sometimes when we first started out, the constructive criticism that I took quite personally. Because when someone goes, hey, the event was shit, you're telling me that I'm shit. And regardless of however many people tell me to separate it, I am an emotional human being that's trying to do my best. So if someone says that the event wasn't good, that to me is a direct alignment with who I am, because I am the event.
Yes.
But then be able to remove my ego and actually listen to customer feedback and genuinely adopt it. We changed our business through and through and through. When people were like, hey, these times don't work, we changed the times that our trading days were open. When people were like, hey, you should add an industry party so that the industry could network rather than the consumers, we changed it and added an event like the VIP media launch, where it was photographers, videographers, models, emerging designers, all of that, so that businesses could network. So listening to your customer, really taking feedback on board, writing back to Google reviews that are negative, it shows that there's a human on the other side. And you know what? Like if someone can't give you another shot again, then there's so many other customers out there that are.
Yeah. I think the part that's really important in what you're saying is listening to clients or to customers and and listening to their feedback. But it only becomes possible to move on from that and take that in your stride when you're confident within your product. And that's what I found really early on in this is I really struggled to listen to feedback because I had no confidence in what we were doing. And that's because I was like 21, fresh out of a completely different career, didn't have the skills or the education behind me to really have confidence in what we do. But now when I have those type of conversations, it's really different. I have businesses every day that come to us and say, hey, we'd like to improve this, or we want to do this, a number of different feedbacks that we get daily. But now having complete confidence because we've been able to scale so many businesses gives me a real understanding that, hey, that may be your view. We'll take that on as feedback, but we really know where we're heading. I think a lot of times when businesses get feedback, and it sounds like you were very similar to us, they flip their whole model. They're like, okay, they didn't like that. I've got to find a completely different path to go down. This isn't me. But it's about taking small things from it, sticking to your core, and then being able to grow and build on top of that. And I think that's something I really resonated with what you were saying. You don't need to change everything. Everything has an opinion. But what you need to do is really understand who you are as a business, and then be able to listen to consumer and grow on that. And I really dealt with that early and been able to overcome it now. And yeah, even to when businesses come to us, as I said, we have not high turnover because of, I guess, anything we do. We have high turnover because small business comes in and out a lot. But we have businesses every now and then who go, we'd like to end the contract. It happens. And we're really confident now to say good luck and have fun, because we did know where we were going. We knew we could improve where we're at. And much like you with these brands, you have a real strong confidence within, I guess, the model you've set up from B2C and B2B. And if they don't like what they're doing, maybe they're necessarily not invested in the same type of quality as you are. So I think it's a really important story for anyone that's looking to create their own business.
And there's enough success out there, and there's enough clients out there for any business. So we're one of the biggest ones where we're faced with, since 2018, our streetwear brands, heaps of them have folded. Most businesses, you were saying, like small businesses, but startups, fashion brands, their lifespan is normally 6 months. They don't even make it to a year of business, because that's how hard the streetwear fashion game is. 6 months, and then most businesses will fold. And some of them, we catch them in that growth phase where they opt into ego and they choose to, put their business out. And sometimes it doesn't benefit them. Sometimes their business model isn't aligned exactly like that with our own business model. And just recognizing, I think that there's other people that need your service and your business, and having that confidence is going to get you to those ones, because we're still standing. It might be different clients. We might have high turnover, similar to yourself, but every business has different needs. Every person has different needs. And if we can ride that train with you, and you're stopping wherever you need to stop and then hop off, feel free to do so. Yeah. And it's very similar in digital marketing. We provide businesses, like services for people that opt in.
Yeah. And then you've got great success in, we've had customers or clients now that we've had for 2 years, and maybe 30-40% of our customers we've had for 2-3 years. And there's both dynamics within it, and you've got to be really, I think, as we've talked about ego a lot in business, you've got to put that aside as well. There's only so much you can control of what someone's doing. I know the streetwear stuff, people probably have a certain budget, and that budget runs out after 6 months, and you've got to not attach yourself to that. Early on, I was attaching myself to every customer, every client, because there was money in the bank, right? But now it's very different. We definitely care a lot, and our business is integrated into a lot of our clients, but we know that we can't control every facet of what's going on, whether they're getting money in, spending it on a holiday, whether they're getting money in, reinvesting it into their brand. We don't know what they're doing with that. We can't control that. And so when it comes to the marketing bill at the end of the month or the start of the month, and much like you, when it comes to the fees that are involved with ego or however that's structured, you can't control what someone's doing outside of their own business. And you've got to be able to as we've said multiple times, put the ego aside and understand that is business, and be able to move forward.
Yeah. And if you do lose a client after customer feedback for whatever reason that they were dissatisfied, treat it as an opportunity, that it's like, okay, I might have lost this customer, but now I've got to an opportunity to learn from that and then do better for the next ones that come in. That's how we see it. Like we might, we're not perfect, and some people might catch us at the early startup phases when we were at year one. We were figuring it out, And at the same time, it's like I've always been honest with that. Like coming in and being like, we're not perfect. We're a human as well. I think just humanizes the whole experience. And sometimes I can respectfully understand that it's like, hey, well, our budget doesn't meet this expo this year. We're not doing it. We've had brands like Volley, Superdry, overseas, we've had Acme de la Vie, Six Silk from UK. We've had global brands that then also hop in and hop out. But it's not like the relationship's damaged or anything. It just sometimes it doesn't suit their Q1 marketing strategy, which we fall in February. So and that's fine. Yeah. But you know what? I'll reach out next year and we'll have a go again next year.
I like it. Let's wrap up with a couple of questions. First question is, what would you say to anyone that says you should only focus on one thing or one thing only? You've got to wear two hats here, because you've got to wear the business coach hat and you've got to wear the business owner of multiple business owners.
Yeah, so I think trust your gut. Like I think self-awareness is key in this one, because if you are self-awareness is everything. So if you know that you can only focus on one thing and you execute better at 100% on this one thing, do it. For me, it doesn't work for me. So I can only talk from my experience. If I only did just the one thing, I would be bored as batshit. Like my brain just doesn't work like that. It fires at different times. I actually gain energy from having multiple businesses because I do take off one hat and I get to focus on another. And to me, I get a second win in the day with my energy span. So I do a lot more. It's the same as when people like ask me, it's like, don't overwork yourself. I'm like, that's also subjective. Everything is subjective. Yeah. Everything is relevant. Do what works for you. So if focusing on one thing works for you, hell yeah, go forward. If not doing one thing works for you, do that.
Yeah, I like it. It's a challenging one. You get a lot of different views on this. I think you're right. Structure is important. In that, structure is super important. If you want to do a couple businesses, fine, do it, but understand how you're going to do it and set it up properly. I guess Web3, NFT, digital space, are you doing anything around there? Are you looking into it? I know within streetwear and all the community around Ego Expo, we're spending a little bit of time around this, I guess, NFT stuff. Is there anything coming forward with you in that regard? You're steering clear from it for now, focusing on the people. Where does that sit?
So personally, definitely I'm invested in a bit of crypto. Not that it's doing anything well now, but you can't make money if you don't take it out. So that's in there. NFT space, we've had early conversations with other ones about creating our own for Ego and for our fashion brands as well. The Australian Open was an event that showed high success, very, very high success with their collaboration in that Web3 space. And they were able to create a really amazing new customer and clientele based on tapping into that. So I think we're looking at that as well. But I also want to do it and not get it right, but make sure that it actually adds value, right? It actually adds utility behind what we do. And we're still figuring out that, because the NFT space right now, no one knows where it's going. Even the experts, it's all a guess. So it is coming. I'm excited about the space. I'm intrigued. I'm curious. It's been a while since I think this many people have been so excited about what this world might look like. And so I'm keeping my eyes and ears peeled, no expert at it at all, and I'm open to conversation. So
Perfect. Well, look, I think we've covered some really cool things here today. I'm really interested to watch what happens over the next 2 to 3 years with what you're doing. I also got introduced to you from Jay, who works here, and we will now stay very close in, I guess, watching where Ego gets to. I think you're building something great, and I think it's time for a country like Australia to take that step in regards to promoting community, and also with your events company that we didn't touch on a lot here. I know it's at the moment doing really great, and I'm excited to watch where it all goes, and we'll see what happens in the NFT digital space for you. We might see some Ego Expo NFTs rolling around in the next year or so. Who knows? But thank you for coming on. I think everyone's going to learn a lot about I guess, you and your journey, and we'll attach anything that links anyone to you if they want to be involved. But yeah, thank you
Thanks,
for joining
Sam.
us.
Had a lot of fun.